Israel, welcome to the podcast. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Great to be here.
I'm really excited about this. Really excited today.
Yeah, so you should be. So am I actually. It's a fascinating topic. So yeah, it's we're going to be getting into it.
And also, normally, quite often I talk about topics I've got a reasonable understanding around. Now, today, we're going to do something different in the fact that I don't have that much of an understanding. So
Yes.
I'm going to start from the very, very beginning with this.
Yes.
So maybe you can give me an overview or a summary of just what is astrology?
Okay. Well, contrary to popular belief, because for most people, when they hear the word astrology, they tend to think of what they've read perhaps in the newspapers or magazines. Astrology has become popular because of this, and now we've got social media. Astrology has also taken a bit of a boost as well and become more popular. But so most people tend to feel that astrology is just about 12 zodiac signs, and that, we've got 8 billion people on the planet now, and that 8 billion people seem to just fit into one of these nice, neat boxes of zodiac signs, which tells you about your characteristics and can predict your future. There is an element of truth to that, but it's far from the truth. Astrology is the study and the science of time. It's the oldest science known to man. It's the mother and father of all sciences. Regardless of our understanding of how we came about, some people may want to take a biblical view that maybe we created from Adam and Eve. Okay, fine. Some people may want to take maybe a Darwin or evolutionary approach. The fact of the matter is, whoever our ancestors, early humans, who they were, what they noticed was the rising and setting of the sun. Those are the things that they would have first encountered. Those are the things that they would have first acknowledged. They would have acknowledged that every 28 days there was a full moon. They would have noticed the solstices, the equinoxes, the times of the year where we have longer days, shorter nights, and vice versa. And this is where the birth of astrology essentially came. Astrology essentially is the science of time. It's understanding time. Time is not linear as we would often think, or maybe we've been led to believe. Time is cyclical. And astrology essentially is the science of time. And it allows us to understand how time evolves. So basically, based on when we were born at a particular time of the day, time of the month, time of the year, and that has some meaning. And through that, an astrologer can see where the planets were located when somebody is born and be able to understand, well, this is the cycle that you are running. It's a little bit like a farmer, if we can put it in layman's terms. A farmer plants various crops, for example. You can Brussels sprouts, corn, can have rice, broccoli. There can be a number. But all of these different plants have their cycles. One may take 3 months, one may take 6, one may be 9 months, one may be a year. They all vary. And that is the same also with us as human beings, because we are a part of nature. So astrology essentially is the calculator for the natural world in which we live in. It's how we understand. Even our time today is based on the movements of the sun. Our calendar is based on the movements of the sun. Nobody can deny that. So essentially speaking, at the very base level, we're all plugged in to this world of astrology. But it just has various levels in terms of where it can point towards certain attitudes, characteristics, particular traits that we have, how we go about doing it, which will also enhance or show our strengths, our weaknesses. And essentially, astrology has become a science now, which has become a tool for self-guidance, for self-improvement, for self-development. The idea of the word fortune telling often comes to mind. How often maybe it's been portrayed in the movie world. Astrology, yes, it is that. It is. We're all born. It's based on the idea that every human being on this planet is born with something fortunate. Some people can run fast. Some people can think fast. Some people are excellent communicators. Some people are excellent salespeople. Some people are good at leading. Some people are good at caring for other people. Everybody has a strength, has a talent, has something that you're fortunate to have that. And if it's cultivated in an appropriate way, it can give you your fortune. We often think of fortune as money. Okay, fine. That's connected to it too. Astrology can show you how you can perhaps enhance your money, where it is that your money can come from. So the idea of something being fortune telling, yes, that is part of astrology, but it's not just based on something just as simple as, oh well, because you're a Taurus or you're a Gemini or you're a Scorpio or a Libra, you just fit into that nice neat box and that is it. As a matter of fact, astrology couldn't be further from that truth. It's actually a lot more complex and a lot more layered and detailed. So this is what astrology is. It's the science of time. It's the science of nature. We are nature. We are a part of nature. So we also come under the rule of what astrology is.
Great answer. Love that. Really interesting.
Very long answer, but
Right. Really...
trying to nail it down as much as possible. But it's so vast. Astrology is so vast. It's unreal.
Got plenty of time, so okay. Yeah. So what's the significance then of the date you were born?
Yeah.
How does that impact how
so,
we how
yeah. So if one goes to an astrologer for an astrologer reading, for example, the date, the time, literally the time of day needs to be taken, the day of birth, year, everything. And the astrologer will then calculate what's known as a natal chart. Sometimes it's called the horoscope. But actually that's a little bit incorrect. But I mean, it's not a problem. It's just become, since astrology has become more general, people they'll say, oh, your horoscope. Okay, we can refer to it as the horoscope. The horoscope, or the word horoscopus, which comes from the Greek, essentially just means the ascendant. It's to do with the, horoscope is the scope of the hour in which you were born, that moment, which is to do with what's known as the ascendant, or also referred to as the rising sign in astrology. That's what the horoscope actually is. But we refer to the whole natal chart as the horoscope sometimes, which is fine. But an astrologer will draw up what's known as a birth chart, a natal chart. And based on that time, that place, the day which you were born, we're able to map each position of where all the planets were located in our solar system at that moment of birth. Where the sun was, what constellation the sun was in, where the moon was, what constellation the moon was in, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. We also have more planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. And depending on where they were in the chart, or where they were in the heavens, because that's what we're doing. We're looking at the sky, we're mapping the heavens. Where were they placed? Was Jupiter over there, rising, or was Jupiter setting? Was Venus rising? Was Venus setting? Was Venus in the middle of the sky? Was she below the horizon at the moment of birth? All of this matters. And the configuration, the astrologer will be able to see the whats, the whys, the hows, the whens of your life. So it becomes like your personal, I refer to it as the cosmic blueprint. It's like your personal sat nav, which guides you. And no two charts are the same. So every chart is going to be individual. This is one of the reasons why the world, the scientific world, it's partially why they reject things like astrology. Because the science world wants, okay, if I take A and I take B, I get C. They want to be able to quantify things, and they want to be able to replicate things. To some degree, you can. To some degree, to a subtle degree, you can do that in astrology, but you can't really do that. Why? Because no two times are exactly the same. Every chart is different. We can see many similarities. Charts echo, but you cannot get the same. And that's where it differs. So because of that, it kind of throws that out the window, because they want something which is more structured, So the astrology or astrologer who does the natal chart will be able to see this and be able to have insights. Each particular planet represents something in your life. Each planet represents a particular characteristic about you, how you think, how you communicate, your ability to love or receive love, where you feel nurtured, how you like to project yourself, how do you see yourself as an individual, you know, your belief system, your structure, the society in which you were groomed, how did it affect you? Some people are extroverts, some people are not, some people are more quiet, some people are more reserved, some people are more conservative, some people are anti-conservative. It all varies. The chart will reveal and will show you everything about who you are and what you need or who you're going to become and how best you can become that. It also hints out or shows the blind spots, because there's often stuff that we're not aware of in life, and that's where sometimes we get the hiccup. We all have what I refer to as an Achilles heel, a weak spot, and very often we're blinded by it. We don't see it, but we keep tripping over it. An astrologer will be able to inform you, should be able to inform you that you've got this in your chart. This is a bit of a difficulty. This is going to be a struggle. This is going to be a challenge. Perhaps maybe handle it like this or work with it in this way. So this is essentially what a birth chart essentially is. And it's very specific and very unique to each and every single birth chart is unique to that particular individual. Even twins will differ. As much as we like to see twins dressed the same and they look the same and they're identical, and it's very nice, but they differ. They will have their own path. There will be similarities, of course, because they grew up in the same household, they have the same parents most of the time. They'll go to the same school, and so they'll tend to meet the world, but they are going to differ. They'll go to different jobs and live apart. They'll get married to different people. So again, even with twins, it even still differs. There's ways to read charts of twins also as well, where we can see firstborn, secondborn, who was the first. This is how you're going to act. This is how you are. This is your personality traits. It's all there in the chart.
So, from what you're saying, then, is some of our personality preordained in some respects? So, therefore, whether you're extrovert or an introvert, that can be based, from what you're saying, it can be based on kind of how the stars were aligned almost in some respects. They talk about that, don't they? The stars are aligning.
Yeah. So this is where a bit of and again, we're just going back to science, because then science tends to look at it and say, well, this is a whole heap of nonsense. Are you trying to say that I act a certain way, or this is happening because when I was born, Jupiter or Saturn was over there? Absolutely nonsense. Jupiter's thousands of miles away and has no bearing on what I'm doing over here. But essentially what astrology is actually, it's a clock. Just as we use the clock today, which is based on the sun. It's a clock. So what the planets are actually doing, it's not necessarily the planets are making us a particular way. The planets are showing us that based on that time we were born, we are subjected to a particular kind of energy that was present at that time. It's not the planets are not compelling us to act a particular way. They're not making us. We're not puppets on a string, but that it's letting us know that, well, Jupiter was over there when you were born. And because Jupiter was there, Jupiter signifies this. So this is being reflected in your characteristics, in your attitude. And that's essentially how it is.
Because what I was leading to, actually, because I was going to ask you the link between time and energy.
Well, yes.
Because I think a lot about energy. And good energy, all that sort of stuff.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
And how do they bring those together for?
Yeah. So I mean, okay, if we try to make it basic, if we look up from a day to day, most people throughout the world, and again, we have different time zones. Of course, it can be a particular time right here, and you know, in the UK, and it will be a different time in New York, of course, or California, or in the Eastern worlds. People tend to get up in the morning. There's a natural biorhythm that we tend to respond to. Now, of course, people work shifts. We know that. People do work nights and, you know, but we know the normal or the natural way is that people tend to wake up when it's sunrise. Just naturally, instinctively, we wake up. We'll have, for many people, they'll have breakfast. They'll have a lunch at midday, and in the evening we'll have our dinner, you know, before we go to bed. So the thing is, where is that coming from? Because over the years, as human beings, we know that there is a direct link with the movement of the sun throughout the day as it rises, culminates at around noon, and then sets in the evening. And then when it sets, get tired, we want to go to bed, right? So when we sleep, for example, the brain produces more, you know, serotonin and all the chemicals that are necessary. So when we wake up the next day, it can allow us to function again. With the exception, of course, people do security jobs, night works, you know, bars, stuff like that. But for the masses, for the norms, that's what it is. The clock, when somebody's having breakfast at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning, again, there's an energy here. Is it the clock that is making us eat breakfast? You see, so that's again just like our astrology is. It essentially is working. It's not the planet that's saying, "Oh, you need to." It's reflecting. That time is reflecting. We know that that's a reflective time. That 7 or 8 o'clock, or because maybe I'm going to work, going to be at work at 9 or whatever. Going to eat my breakfast at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock. It's reflecting on something. Again, when it's lunchtime, there's a particular energy. There's something about that time of the day where it's more best suited. Doesn't mean you have to do it or you must do it, but it's best to perhaps have your lunch around, whether it's 12, 1 o'clock in your own time zone where you are. So again, there's an energy there. And then going to bed, you know, before going to bed, we've got to have a meal before going to bed. And then it's the best time to go to bed. So it's all energy, just like what you're saying. The energies are telling us early in the morning, the energy is fresh, it's young, something's vibrant, springing into action. When the sun culminates in the midday, the energy is at its highest. You know, this is one of the reasons why even in uh, um, nutrition, the nutritionists or a lot of dietitians, although there's a lot of information about that out there, but they say, oh, you know, it's best to eat perhaps maybe your biggest meal in the midday. You see, well, for obvious reasons, because the energy is very high around that time, you know, so the body needs it. It works well with it. Some people say, okay, breakfast is the most important meal and stuff like yeah, because the energy is young, it's springing into action. You've just woken up. There's something about the body. This is why they want us at work at 9 o'clock in the morning because you're fresh. We got you. You know, you've just woken up. You know that you're ready to kickstart. So there is something about energies throughout the day, different energies. And again, this is also projected into the science of astrology, that at any given time, there's a particular energy which is present. And that energy could be quite vibrant, could be more resting energy, you know, could be boosting, it could be, you know, at its peak, at its lowest. It all depends. And all of that energy essentially is what is locked into the birth chart, which the astrologer can read and give one guidance about.
Fascinating. And it's interesting because I know I get up quite early and I go to the gym and I walk and everything in the morning. Yeah. And the energy in the morning, there is something really special about it. I love getting up way before everybody else.
Yes, yes.
And this morning I went out for a long walk before going to the gym. And there's this kind of calm and it's very peaceful. The birds are out and singing and everything. Yeah. But there is this dawning of a new day and like everything feels like the body's waking up, the brain's waking up. And yeah, it's quite I find it quite an electric time. Like
Yeah.
I always have a way better day if
Yeah.
I get up early and walk or go to the gym, etc. And I just something sets you up for the day because
Exactly.
it's that morning energy that you
Exactly,
get.
yeah,
So
because that's when the sun's rising. It's just come over that eastern horizon, right? So it's just rising. The energy is fresh. There's something about a new birth. This is what the ancients, when we look at the mythologies and the cosmologies in various cultures, we find that the ancient Egyptians, for example, had their cosmology was that they saw that sun rising in the east and they referred to it as the god Ra being born. You see, even the Greeks had it also as well of Apollos and Helios rising in his chariot, running through there. So there's something about that morning energy. I used to be a boxer, and it was well known that you did your road work, you did your running early in the morning, you got up. It's still something that boxers still do today. You wake up 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and you go for your run because that's it's early. There's something about that energy, about that early morning, that if you grasp it, and then we hear sayings like that, early bird catches the worm. You see, so there's something about that early energy which is quite interesting. Just plugging it back into astrology, there's something quite unique about people who are born around that time. It's quite interesting because I can't remember who did the study, but there seemed to be a study that actually showed that a majority of births were tending to land around that time, early morning, maybe dawn, maybe just before or just around that time. That that I don't know the actual statistics, but there seemed to be a study that supported that. There was something about that early day, and that's when the new life essentially was coming in. Of course, people are born at different times of the day, but for majority of people, they tended to land in that particular region. So there is something about the early day. But every moment, every second of the day, which is ticking, it has a particular energy to it. And that energy is going to be within the person who is born at that time. And they will express it. Is it a high energy? Is it a low energy? Is it a extrovert energy? Is it an introvert energy? All of that will be revealed in the chart of the individual.
Interesting. So if someone's born early in the morning,
Mhm.
what does that potentially tell us about them?
So it tells us that there's something about the person that is quite vibrant. It would also depend on the time of the year as well, because it would depend on the months, depending on the zodiac sign. But for people who tend to be born at early morning, there's something about them. They have a kind of leadership going out kind of nature about them, because that's when the sun is actually on the horizon getting ready to show itself. And essentially, for the individual who is born around that time, there's something about that person that is quite, yes, I want to go out, I want to show myself. So this person could be somebody who sort of like takes certain initiatives to be kind of in the spotlight in some kind of way. Um, it's very likely that this person's personality could be very easily seen or accessible in some kind of way. Again, it still would depend on the zodiac sign, because the zodiac sign will color the expression in terms of how the sun is going to be in the chart. And there are some zodiac signs which are a lot more conservative, maybe, than others, or a lot more. Maybe there are zodiac signs that are more extrovert than others, for example. So if it's a zodiac sign that is more extrovert, then yes, we're going to see a real kind of extrovert kind of person. But if it's a zodiac sign which is a bit more conservative, we will see a strong conservative person, but they're still going to stand out in some kind of way. Born in that early morning when the sun is rising, there's something there. It holds a presence, and it's quite magical. That if anybody's actually seen a sunrise, I mean, there's something about sunrise. I mean, very often in the romantic sense, we often focus on sunset, which is quite interesting. But there's something also about the sunrise. which is extremely powerful and very magical also as well. That if one can just stand on and look towards the east and watch that sunrise, there's something really magical about it. And there often is with people who are born around that time also as well.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons why I love getting up at that time is because
Yes.
quite often, especially at this time, it's the
Yes.
perfect time. So if you're out early, then the sun is beginning to rise,
Right. Yes.
and
Yes.
kind of where it's just a beautiful. You can
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And you're talking about the zodiac, so you're talking about things like Aquarius, Pisces.
That's right.
Those types of things.
Yes. So these things are essentially when we're talking about the constellations of these zodiac signs. There are stars. We're talking about stars which are billions and trillions of light years away. And what the ancients did is that they noticed that the 360-degree, as if we're looking at the sky, that there were certain patterns which the different star constellations formed. And it's through that their names were derived, they were given. So one looked like a ram, one looked like a fish, one looked like a lion, and things like that. And they were given their names: Aries, Taurus, Gemini. So, and these are constellations which are way, way out there. So what we're doing as astrologers, when we say, oh, well, you're an Aries, you're a Taurus, what we're doing, or how we can tell, is we're looking at the sun, where the position of the sun was for any given time of the year, and we are looking at the backdrop, and we can see the star constellations which are behind that planet or behind that sun, which allows us to know that it's in that constellation. That's where it's sitting. Another way of measuring it, especially in Western astrology, is that Western astrology is also synchronous with the seasons. So another way of also measuring it is that on the March the 20th every year, the sun moves into the constellation or into the sign of Aries, right? So, and based on where the sun is, we calculate where the other planets are in relation to the sun. So astrology is also seasonal. So Aries kicks up, and Aries marks the spring equinox. Then 3 months later, we have the summer solstice on June the 21st. 3 months later, then we have the autumn equinox, September the 21st. 3 months later, we have the winter solstice on December the 21st. Comes back round again to March the 20th, spring equinox again. The word equinox meaning equal. So this is where we experience equal day and night. So we have 6 hours day, 6 hours night. So the two equinoxes represent that. The solstice represents the longest day and the shortest night. The winter solstice represents the longest night and the shortest day. So astrology is also seasonal. It's also how the farmers used to use, and fishermen. They knew when to plant things. When was the time of the harvest? All of that is all embedded in astrology. It all comes from astrology. This is where our ancestors got it from. And we're still using it today. But the astrology side tends to be, because of certain scientific reasons, be thrown out of the window.
Yeah, I can see where there's I can see why you mentioned science a few times, because the counter to what you're talking about is science, and it says, well, no, because it's this, and this.
Right. Yes.
But actually, what we're talking about, it's maybe more spiritual. It's more energy focused, and you can't touch and feel that.
Right. Yes. Right.
So science wants to go, wants to prove something. This is water. This is ice. This is how,
exactly. Yeah.
They
want to quantify.
That's a good answer.
Yes. Science wants to quantify things. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with quantifying things. We all have to quantify something in life, right? Everything does need its boundaries, and I get that. The problem with quantifying something is that it limits. Now, don't get me wrong, I love science. Science is a brilliant thing. They've done great things and will continue to do great things, as we can see as our society is evolving. However, you cannot quantify consciousness, which is part and part of where astrology starts now to come in. Energy, you can't quantify feeling, can't quantify love, thought processing. These are things that cannot be, and astrology tends to also function also in those kind of parameters also as well. But science wants to no, we want something. Show me A, B that makes C, and so we can keep duplicating that. And again, like I said, with astrology is based on the science of time, and no two times are ever the same. Yeah. We'll get similarities, but they're never the same. Last year's solstices and this year's solstices are two different solstices. Equinoxes, there's a similarity, of course. We're getting the sun moved back to the same position as where it was, but it's different in relation to the other planets. So every year, every day, every moment, every second is a different quality. Similar qualities, one can echo the other, yes, but it's not exactly the same. Nothing two are exactly the same in this universe.
I love what you said there, because you can't quantify love.
Yes.
You can't quantify consciousness.
Exactly.
And that's where I think it links back into the energy you're
talking
about. Because I often think about intuition, and certainly the last number of years, I've changed quite a lot because I've been focusing much more on intuition, which is, does this feel right? Does it feel right in my gut?
That's right, exactly, yes.
And I've learned, and I think this is aligning to kind of some of the things you're talking about, which is that a lot of my decision making now, I've stopped using a science-based approach, or right, or wrong is this? Does it feel right?
Right, yeah, exactly. And go with it. And
just go and wow, it's improved decision-making times.
Yeah.
It's just like make a decision and then go with it.
And it makes it more, coming back to that word, natural.
Very.
Because there's a part of science also as well, and like I say, science is brilliant, that I think it maybe not just science, I think it's part of human nature, to be quite honest, that wants to control in some kind of way. And so in order to control something, it requires us to create borders or parameters, and like I say, it's okay for a limited period, but it limits. So we have to be very mindful that we're not limited and we don't get caught up in a box. We've got to be able to go with the natural flow of things.
It's like science is looking for a rational explanation.
Exactly.
Like math.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, what we're talking about is just something.
It's something. It's much more diverse. It's much more fluid. Astrology is far more fluid than that. It's not. Astrology is not going to allow you to just trap it in a little box, and that's why they feel that astrologers think that astrology is just about 8 billion people fitting into this nice, neat box of 12 zodiac signs, whereas it's far more complex than that, and it's far more fluid than that. We're a combination, because you've got a sun sign, you've got a moon sign, you've got a Mercury sign. All of these planets can be in different zodiac signs, which will indicate different things about your character and your being. So we're multiple. We're not just one zodiac sign. That's just based on what's referred to as the sun sign, which is the most popular, because normally when we get into realms of astrology, they say, oh, what's your star sign? What's your sun sign? That's what we get into. Okay, you've got the sun sign, but that has a meaning, which is fine. And we will see those character traits in you to some degree, but there's going to be others also as well. And we might even see other zodiac sign traits, which actually are more dominant than actually your sun sign, based on how, because we've got to know your rising sign, your moon sign, your Mercury sign. So we're going to see other things also as well. We're not just going to see the sun sign. So the sun sign has been something that's been limited, again, to that. And like I said, astrology is far more fluid than that.
Yeah, because if I think kind of what's famous in astrology is your star sign, that even comes out on first dates and those sorts of things. It comes out, what are you? I'm an Aquarius, so I'm a Pisces. We're never going to match.
That's right,
Yeah, all right, I don't know.
Exactly.
So They go get divorced.
Yeah,
Based on the I just made up. But that can be a conversation.
It can be a conversation, and it can be a conversation that can hopefully it can be a conversation that leads into something far more deeper than that.
Yeah.
A lot of people are using astrology to, I've met people, I've heard people say, oh, they're an Aquarius, just like that. No, I would never date an Aquarius. I'm like, that is so silly. Don't say things like that, because astrology is not based, it doesn't work like that. Unless you've got somebody's full chart or horoscope in front of you and you are learned in the language of astrology, where you can interpret, where you can see that, with astrology, anybody can marry anybody. I can show you people who their zodiac signs, quote unquote, are compatible with each other. Their sun signs are compatible with each other, but yet they got divorced after 5 years or 10 years. And I can show you people who essentially on paper, you think, oh, that zodiac sign doesn't really match that zodiac sign, but they've been married together for 60 years. So because there's so much more that is at work than just your sun sign. But it can be a conversation to get into things. That's fine if it's going to spark, but just to know that don't base dating somebody or doing something something that's going to be meaningful. If somebody's going out on a date, which I would suspect that the idea is that you're looking for somebody who you're going to have a relationship with for the rest of your life, and you're going to have children with and live in a house with. Do not just base that on what sun sign are they, or they're of this zodiac sign, and I heard or read somewhere that zodiac sign is not compatible with my zodiac sign, so I'm gonna, you could be in great danger there. We've got to look at the whole chart. Astrology is far more fluid than that, and there's so many things that have to be taken into account as to, okay, if we're looking at it from a relationship perspective, is this a relationship that can work or can't work or whatever it is?
So how do we take from what you've shared about astrology so far and put it into everyday life, into our practice? What can it teach us, tell us about ourselves?
Yeah. So, like I said, when the chart is drawn up, a natal chart, the astrologer can advise the individual. Again, in the natal chart, it will show us our strengths, our weaknesses. It can align us with our goals in terms of vocational goals or career goals that we may have. Everybody is best suited in a particular area or in a particular career than another.
So can you even go into that level of detail?
Oh, most definitely. It will show the best career which is best suited for you, what you're more likely to go into based on what's in your chart.
Wow.
Based on your strengths. It can show the agenda behind our relationships which we pursue. Because we all have different things. We're all attracted to different people. We're all looking for different things. If you ask 10 different people what they're looking for in a relationship, they'll tell you 10 different things. One wants love, one's looking for intelligence, one may be looking for good luck, good looks, one may be looking for money, security. There's a huge array of things as to why people, again, we live in a society where I feel we are strongly being conned into believing that all relationships are quote unquote based on love. And I'm not saying there's no love there. Of course, there is. But I think that's a word that gets thrown around a lot, love. I think we have to define that. And I don't think it can be defined. What love is to one person is different to another. Love has variations and different ways of expressing itself. What we're looking for in partners differs. Something that may be a red flag for somebody else, it's like, yeah, that's fine. I'll take that. I want that. So again, we live in a society that likes to put us in these boxes in terms of how we should be living our life. Astrology allows us to show us that no, you're unique, you're an individual, and this is what you are more attracted to, or the kind of people who are going to be attracted to you. Astrology shows us about our family life, the family which we grew up in. And the family, because you see, the family which you grew up in is the one that we go on to create ourselves. So it shows us the backdrop of where we were coming from and how best we can work with it to have a more fulfilling life. It shows us aspects about our health, our general overall well-being, our attitude towards money, our connection with our siblings, our potential to perhaps have children, marriage, career, travel. Some people, migrate. All of these things can be shown in the chart. So it goes to every level, every topic of life that you can ever think of can be seen in the horoscope and can be described. As much as our weaknesses, where are our challenges? What is that we're going to be having difficulty with? What is it that we need to work on a bit more harder than other things? Where are our talents? How best can we put them to work? I find a lot of people are perhaps sitting on their talents. They haven't. It's like they don't know. And again, because we go to school, they fit what 20, sometimes in case of some 30 pupils in one class. It's one curriculum. We're looking for a one size that fits all. Astrology shows you that no, you're an individual. This is fine. This is your lane. You could be in your lane. So astrology is there to empower you, to inform you. Many other times, clients come to me and they're like, "Oh my God!" It's like yeah, they kind of know that, but at the same time didn't know that because because of we have to remember when we're born in society that there are many layers which are added to, we have the parents' expectation and the culture perhaps we were born as expectation, our peers, religion, society, community expectations. So we have, and now these days, social media. So there's so much stuff we get bombarded with. But the question is, who are you really on the inside? Who are you truly on the inside? And that's where astrology comes in. Astrology is able to peel those layers and say, this is who you are. This is what you are. The mission of an apple seed is to grow into an apple tree, not an orange. You can't give me an apple seed and tell me to produce oranges with it. It's impossible. And that's what the birth chart is telling you. It's showing you the seed of which you are and what you need to become. Many people are oak trees trying to be an orange tree. It's not going to work. Many people are squares trying to fit into a circle, or circles trying to fit into a triangle. And this is what it is. When we are trying to do or trying to become something we're not, that's where the issue is. That's where the problem is. And a lot of the times it's like that because, again, we're looking for because it's convenient. It's a nice, neat one size that fits all. And it just doesn't work like that. And this is where astrology comes in. It allows us to understand our own uniqueness and empower us. This is the job which is best suited for you. This is the line which is best suited for you. You do have free will, because there are aspects of it which are you mentioned earlier on about predestined. And yes, there is parts of it that are predestined. There's parts of our life that we cannot change. It's fixed, no matter what. We cannot change our parents. We cannot change the families we were born into, the circumstances we were born into, our blood type. There's so many variations. Look, we can't change it. Okay, people are having facelifts these days. All right, you can try to adjust, but there's certain things that we can't change. So predestined, yes, to some degree, but we do have free will. So if a chart was to say, okay, this is a chart that's good for a sports person. Okay, well, what sport? It's going to be running, boxing, martial arts. There's so many different kinds of sports that are out there that you could do. So you can have your free will, but you're still in the realm of sports. Or are you in the realm of entertainment? Okay, there's so many different types of entertainment. What kind of entertainment are we talking about? How are you entertaining people? Again, you have your free will there. So free will, it's free will and predestined that are work simultaneously. And astrology allows us to be able to fit predestined, things that are being predestined, and our free will to be able to work with it in a much more harmonious way. And that way we get a more fulfilled life.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. So what's it taken us to? And you said it just then, a more fulfilled life.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's what it's about.
So it's taking you on a journey, which is really your rightful journey, the journey that's going to give you the most level of fulfillment.
Yes,
one great life.
It's your cosmic birthright. It's everybody's cosmic birthright to be happy, to be fulfilled. Nobody's saying that there's not going to be. Of course, there's going to be problems. Everybody's going to encounter problems. Everybody. I don't care who you are. I don't care how successful you're going to be. Everybody's going to encounter problems, no doubt. Okay, astrology can show you why you're encountering that problem and maybe the best way of how to deal with it. No problem. But the idea is that we're all working to some form of fulfillment. Every human being on planet Earth wants the same thing. In the core bottom, we all want to be happy. We all want to be loved. We all want a nice job. We all want to be paid fairly for our work. Everybody wants that. The question is, how do we go about doing it? And we can question how we go about doing it also as well. I think that's where the number one thing is. But we all want that. We're all yearning. Every human being is yearning to be fulfilled, is longing for that fulfillment. And as they say, life is a journey, not a destiny or destination. And many people are focusing on the destination. It's actually a journey within itself. So when we feel like we've made it to, no, we want more. We want to go bigger and keep doing more and keep doing better and keep improving. This is what life essentially is about. So, and that's where fulfillment essentially comes in. So we're all longing for that fulfilling.
Where does some of this intertwine with psychology? Because I was thinking, as you were sharing that, thinking about Maslow, and I often talk about like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You get to the self-actualization point.
Yeah.
And I wrote about this in the book, which is, for me and many people that I know, you've got to that point where you're self-actualized. Here we are. We've made it. Got to the top of the triangle, the top of the mountain, as you will. And then we are deeply unsatisfied. We are deeply depressed. We thought this was what our life trajectory was, only to realise I've totally climbed the wrong mountain. And I'm like, why are we here? What are we doing?
Yeah.
And I feel like that kind of links into everything you've just said, which is a societal expectation to either earn money, to have a family, to expectation and sort of people around you to go in this direction.
Yeah.
This is what's normal.
Yes.
Get a job.
Yes.
And that's what schools taught us for. And I speak to many people on this podcast and also just friends.
Yeah.
And they've gone on a journey and gone, and I definitely see a lot of people, it's around 40 as well.
Right.
And they've gone, I'm in the wrong place.
Right, yeah.
And I feel like what astrology can do is maybe get past all of that, and actually get into your soul.
Yes.
And give you some guidance on maybe what you should be following.
Most definitely. You touched the word psychology, which is a subject very close to my heart. I'm one of the great psychiatrists of our time. I mean, of course, everyone knows Freud, and big hats off to him. But one of his students, Carl Jung, who also was actually into astrology himself and used astrology as well with his clients also as well to get a further understanding. I don't feel it's that people, again, you use the word people sort of like come to a stage where they think that, oh, I've climbed the wrong mountain or I'm in the wrong place. I don't feel it's the case that you're in the wrong place. But I feel what it is like there's a hidden side, there's a shadow side. There's an awareness as to what you're doing, because people tend to do things, we just go through the motions. People waking up, going to work. And there's nothing wrong with that. Of course, you have to work. Of course, got to make your, whether you're paying your rent or mortgage or, you're there. So that's all necessary. The question is, well, why are you doing it? We need to. What's the meaning behind this? What is my purpose? one of the quotes from the Buddha. He quotes, "To live is to suffer, but to suffer is to find meaning in the suffering. Because if you don't find meaning, you just keep on suffering." And I feel that's what happens with a lot of people. They hit this wall, like what you said, or they climb the mountain. They've reached a level of success, and then they feel like, oh, they're depressed, or they're not satisfied. Yet you're not satisfied. It's not because of you climbed the wrong mountain. It's because there was no meaning. There was no essence. You just climbed the mountain. What was the purpose of you climbing the mountain? What was the aim? Once you get that purpose, bingo, that's what it is. There's nothing wrong with climbing the mountain. And to also understand that once you climb the mountain, once you reach the top, just know that there's going to be another mountain. It doesn't just stop there. Life doesn't just stop. It's a continuation. It keeps on going on and on and on. You see, people think of something. Oh, again, they're thinking in the mode of destination. No, it's much more better if you just think it as a journey. This is where I am right now in my journey, and yeah, people reach places in their journey where they're at the top. But then what? It's like if we take maybe like a footballer, you know, and they say like a great footballer who reaches their peak. Now we know that this is a sport that, of course, you can only play it to a certain age. I don't know, 35, 40. You can't. How many players have played? You might get one or two people who really fit. Maybe they can go beyond it. But afterward, eventually, you do have to. So then, what happens to a person who's reached their quote unquote peak in that field? So then, what happens after? What happens life after football? Or I'm talking like in terms of, and this can go for every career. Every career is going to have a retirement age or where. So what happens after that? Because life still goes on. So yeah, you've conquered one mountain, but you've got more mountains to conquer. But the thing is that you've got to find the meaning in what you're doing. What is the purpose? What am I working towards? Am I working towards helping other people? Am I healing other people? Am I providing something for? What is the aim behind this? And I feel it's when it's meaningless, when it doesn't have meaning, and that's where the depression now starts kicking in. See, depression actually is a good thing. Depression is actually a way of your soul trying to communicate with you. The word depression comes from the Latin word deprere, which means to push down. That's what it means, to depress. I mean, it's in the word itself. Something is being pressed, to depress something. So it's indicating that it's the soul trying to say, look, because what happens when people are depressed? They isolate themselves, they feel lonely, because it's a way of the soul trying to pull the person into a place of isolation where a dialogue can be, because and that's why if you notice many people who discover their quote unquote spiritual journey often come from this place. They'll say, oh, I hit a bad spot, or I lost everything, and something of they hit a brick wall, and that's when they start answering that. Why is this happening to me? I've been successful all my life. Why am I hitting this brick wall? Why can't I go beyond this? Why am I feeling empty, dissatisfied? That's the soul. Now you got it. So a message to people out there: if you're in a position of depression, or you're feeling like you're in a brick wall, you're feeling like life is somehow not. That is good. That is a sign from the universe, and whether we want to look at it astrologically as well, that something is trying to communicate. That's the universe trying to say, or more importantly, it's your soul that's trying to say, hey, buddy, pay attention. There's something else which you're missing, because very often we're one trick ponies. We're looking one way, and sometimes the soul is saying, oh, look over there. Sometimes it's just, right. I didn't know there was this whole world. Oh my God, there's something over there. Oh, and there's something behind me as well. Oh my God, I didn't know. Right. There's a bigger universe, much more bigger than we can actually imagine. So the depression actually is a wake-up call. But essentially, it's that finding the meaning. What is the meaning behind this? What is the purpose? What does it serve? Nothing wrong with making money. Nothing wrong with going to work. It's fine. But what's the purpose? Where's it going? Because if not, that's when the emptiness now will now come in. So yeah, so astrology and psychology are one of the same. They're brother and sister. You can't have one without the other. Astrology is heavily, heavily, heavily psychological. And when I say psychological, I'm talking from the original sense, because the word psyche comes from the Greek word soul. That's what psychology is about. It's about the soul and the journey of the soul. And astrology allows us to be able to pinpoint these aspects of the soul and how the soul can develop, how it can grow, and how it can flourish. Again, coming back to that same fulfillment.
I feel like you're speaking deeply to me at the moment. The reason why is because I went through depression for about 3 or 4 years.
Right.
And I look back on that time now,
right,
as one, yes, it was difficult.
Yes.
But one as the most important of my life. Probably,
yes.
because it was exactly this. What I wrote down here was the depression. It was my soul telling me that there was something more for you. You're supposed to be going in a different direction. You've got to remember. You got to remember who you were before you got caught up in this whole life.
Yes.
Everything else, and we wouldn't be here if I hadn't had the depression.
Right.
And this is what I find really interesting, is that you said here to find meaning in the suffering. That is really profound.
Yeah.
Really profound, because if you are going through those suffering moments, which we go through all the time, people,
yes.
And now I think of that depression as a time of real suffering for me. But the interesting thing was, without going through that, I would have had context for everything in my later life, what's coming now, whether it's the podcast, the book, everything else that's happened and what's going to happen in the future. I needed that wake-up call.
Yes, exactly.
And it was almost like, I've also heard someone describe depression as deep rest. It's like the body is going into deep rest because you've got to wake up, you've got to listen. There's something more for you here.
Exactly, yeah.
So for anyone who's listening who maybe is going through a depressive time, I think this is to really have some self-inquiry around it.
Yes.
Because it could be your awakening.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing, and that's why often maybe it happens for people. Certainly, them, it can happen to anyone.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Yeah, I don't see. I say that, but I put it in brackets. I mean, it's not something that I go around wishing on people.
No.
That But what I will say is that the depression is. It's a tool, it's a fuel, it's a message that you can actually tap into.
And that's where I started thinking. It comes from within.
Yes,
it's real. It comes from within, and that's why I've started really focusing far more on intuition.
Yes,
because all the tools that I learned to help me kind of come out, and all the self-inquiry that I had to do, the therapy I had to do, I was like, this is taking me in a real direction. I love how you've linked it all together. So anyone who's going through kind of a difficult time or depression, I would definitely say use this time as kind of your awakening. Just know it's maybe the end of a chapter, but the beginning of something really new.
But something extremely profound.
Yeah, that's coming.
Yes. And if they can use the time to perhaps, one of the things I would suggest is reflect. Maybe back on, could be, the last couple of years, maybe last 5 or 10 years, to where you've got to that stage, just to look back and what have you been doing? What have you been doing? How have you been feeling? Because it's very easy to get caught up in the rat race, as they call it, or being on that hamster's wheel, and you're just going round. Okay, it's like you're doing the same thing over and over again, kind of thing. So one can get caught up there, but to reflect, and that can be very helpful. And then to also just start asking questions. Well, what would you like? There are people right now who are probably, stuck in an office somewhere. Maybe they're meant to be on stage, and vice versa. maybe somebody's in a particular profession, and but yet they're yearning or they're longing for something else. You see, this is why TV is so popular. Certain TV programs are so popular because people are projecting aspects of themselves, what they would like for themselves, and they see somebody else acting it out for them. So the person now becomes the hero, becomes the icon for them, not realizing that no, that's you, that's who you need to become for also other people also as well. So yeah, depression, it's not an easy thing. Like I say, I won't take it lightly, but exactly what you said. It's try not to see depression as an end. It's a gateway. It's a in between worlds. It's a stopping point for something much greater that's going to come out in your life, and it will give you a lot of meaning.
Yeah. So I think because it is it's a really difficult time, really hard for my wife to
Yes,
see it,
yes,
really hard
yes,
for my friends to see me kind of going through that sort of time. But it was a real deep soul searching time.
yes, yes.
Before depression, I hadn't journaled before, I hadn't meditated before, I hadn't just gone on for a
Yes.
mindful walk or anything along those lines before. And they're all kind of things that I do on a regular basis now.
Yes, yes.
And a lot of that's around reflection, self inquiry. And those were kind of like some of the tools that I learned as part of that depression to kind of help me improve my mood.
Yes.
And I feel like that's when the intuition started to come in.
Right.
Because as you start coming out of the depression, it then started saying, there are direct, as you journaled, words would come out, which would be, what were you here to be doing? What actually is it that you love? Can you remember what it all was? Can you remember how you were when you were 20? I think that was all those sort of reflective questions. I would think back to how you were as a child.
Yes.
What did you love when you were a child? What do you love now? And it's just because something critical is missing in your life. So it's a real, I know it's tough and horrible to go through, but I do think you can find meaning in the suffering.
Oh yeah,
I love this.
Yes. It's searching for that meaning in the suffering. Jung speaks about, when one is going towards the light, the shadow gets bigger as well, and it's the shadow that's the dark side. Everything has a shadow side. So when we're moving towards a certain we could say enlightenment, but we're moving towards some kind of goal. Yeah. Some heights. The shadow also is the casting. The closer we're coming to that light or to that point, the shadow of that also is going to become bigger and bigger. And that's what gets many people a lot of the time. It's the shadow. And it's the shadow that's where the depression essentially is. And the only way you can deal with that is self-reflect. It's where the self-reflection comes in, where the questions start coming in. And that's where the healing process now starts, where you start to see other things at work and you start to see bigger things that you're a part of. I think sometimes we get caught up in, of course, we want to get married, want to have children, want a nice car, want a perfect job, live in a perfect house. And we get caught up in and I'm not saying that's not necessary, it's not nice, it's nice, but sometimes we just feel, and sometimes the universe is trying to say is that it's not just about this nice life you've created for yourself. And what tends to happen is something comes in and cracks that. Something comes and disturbs it. And this is very often why sometimes we see it all the time, whether it's a happy family or we see some kind of safety unit where people are in it, and then for some reason something comes and an accident happens or something comes and disturbs it and breaks it, and we think, oh my god, and it's like, no, something's breaking it because the universe is trying to say, look, this there's meaning that needs to be poured in here. Something needs to, because you're stuck. They say familiarity breeds content, and this is part of as human beings, we get stuck in that world and that hamster's wheel, in that square, and we need to get out. It's the universe is saying, look, meaning, find meaning, expand, explore, grow, develop. And sometimes depression is often one way that people encounter in order to be able to find that.
You started talking about the shadow
Yes.
there. I've read a little bit about it. Can you just give us a bit of an overview of?
So the shadow, yes, essentially, it's like there's a sense that there's two parts of us. We have the conscious self and the unconscious self, and it's things that we're not. To put it in maybe layman's terms, it's the stuff that we're not aware of, that we're blind. We're blinded to it. It's obscure. It's not easily accessible. We have stuff there it's like a computer. When we switch on a computer and we see all the whatever programs or files, we see that on the desktop. That's like the conscious mind. But there's stuff in the hard drive when we got no idea that it's there. There's viruses and all that kind of stuff that's going in there, in there, and that's like the shadow. So the shadow is kind of equated to one's unconscious stuff that you're not aware of. Another layman terms that we can think of, perhaps the attic. If anyone's ever had an attic where we put old stuff and we put it up there, put it in the bags, put it in the box, lock it away in the attic, and we don't. It's only sometimes maybe you go up there for whatever reason. Something requires you to go up there. Maybe a leak or something breaks, and then you think, oh my God. There's all these old photos of this. Oh my God, look at this stuff that's maybe stuff that's been in the family for years, but you're not aware of it. It's not something that's on your mind on a day to day. It's what's happening in the house on a day to day. So that's the shadow. That now becomes the shadow. That which has been locked away. It's been suppressed, maybe. It's been hidden. It's not been acknowledged. It's the parts of us which are not acknowledged. You see, so we have parts of us which are not acknowledged, but also want to be acknowledged. We have an inner child that wants to come out and play as well. We've got an inner child that wants to say, hey, I'm going to come out and play. And if we lock that up, it can become problematic. It can attract certain things into our life or circumstances. And that's what that shadow essentially is. So when we're talking about the shadow essentially is the suppressed parts of ourselves, the parts of us which are unacknowledged, the parts of us which we just want to cover, we don't want to deal with that. That was a long time ago. It's where we sweep the stuff, underneath the rug, sweep the dirt underneath the rug, just cover it with a carpet, nobody will see. But as they say, anything that's done in the dark will come to the light at some point. Everything has to be exposed. And that's where we are now confronted with the shadow part of ourselves. So it's the part of ourselves that we just choose, again, unconsciously or subconsciously, not to look into. And eventually it comes out. It's like a caged animal.
Yeah, interesting.
You cage an animal long enough, a dog, and anybody knows anybody about pets. You cage this animal, it's going to become nasty. You let it out. It's like you got problems on your hands. Because it's been caged up. It's like a wild animal that's been caged. Can't do that.
So it's kind of like a dark side of us.
Yes.
It's a dark side of us that maybe we don't let come to the forefront.
Yes.
Just thinking of an example.
And that's why it's one of the reasons why movies are really great. This is why very often we're attracted towards particular kind of characters in movies. Very often it's because that character, very often, especially if it's a dark character, it's a reflection of our own dark side. It's a part of us that we have, but we don't. So, but we'll see it in a movie. That's why movies can act as a great mirror for self-consciousness. Ah, I like this character. Well, why do you like that character? That's why we like superheroes. People are drawn towards, children especially, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. Okay, but some people like they like the baddie sometimes because the baddie's letting us know we like that, right? We like to be a bit of a baddie or be a bit rebellious or do our own thing and break. So the baddie reminds us of that. The baddie who goes against the rules. That kind of thing. So we all have that inside of us. We all have a dark side inside of us. And I feel if we can embrace that dark side, that okay, I can be, I can be nasty or I can be selfish, because we don't like to speak about these things about ourselves. We always want to betray that. No, I'm a nice person. I'm a nice guy. Everyone you speak to is a nice guy. But yet you get a group of people who say, no, they're nasty over there. And if you go to those people who they say they're nasty over there, they'll tell you the same thing. Oh, well, we're the good guys. I'm over there. Oh, well, okay. Well, what's happening here? Because you're all claiming to be the bad. You're all claiming to be the good guy, but yet somebody's doing something quote unquote bad. What's happening here? And I feel if we can get to that shadow side inside of us, it can really lead to that self-understanding. It is a process. It can be difficult, and it is sometimes we've just buried this something again. We've suppressed it. It's a part of us. It's an ugly side of us that we don't want to own up to or admit.
Why do we want to suppress it? Is that part of the ego suppressing? Is it part of
yes,
our public appearance? We don't want
yeah,
to.
exactly. That's what it is. We suppress it because shame, guilt have been associated with it. Quote unquote bad. Depending again maybe from our religious background, seen as evil. You know, it's not normal. So these are the things. You could be shamed for it. Made to feel guilty for it. So those are the reasons why we suppress it. Oh, I can't let such and such know that I feel like this way, because that's bad. You know, oh, I'm sexually aroused by something. Oh, I can't let nobody know that. There's a bit of shame attached to it. No, I've got to put on. So that's the ego. I've got to put on the front that I'm a good person. I'm a decent person. you know, oh, if given the chance, I'd steal that if I could. But no, I can't tell somebody that I would steal this if given the chance, if I could get away with it and nobody would know. I take that. Quite. But I can't let people know that. I've got to let people know. No, I would not do that because I'm a decent person. I've got to be seen as a decent person. So I feel a lot of it is, a lot of society is it's smoke and mirrors. It's a facade. It's not real. But we're putting up this because we want to constantly. We're trying to keep up this perfection, this image that we're perfect. We're good people. We're the best people. We do no harm. And there's a part of us that no, not quite.
Who we are and who we like to portray.
Yeah,
We are in public,
exactly. Yes,
very different to who we are
yes,
at home or who you are on your own.
We are all a Jekyll and Hyde. It's the purpose of what that story is trying to show us, that we are Jekyll and Hyde. Beauty and the Beast. All of these stories are trying to show us that it's about us. The Beauty and the Beast is within. The Jekyll and Hyde is within. We keep thinking, this is why we gravitate towards certain superheroes. But then what we fail to realize is that the superhero, this is why every superhero has an adversary. They have somebody who's against them. So for Batman, he has the Joker or the Riddler or whoever, Two-Face, or Superman will have Lex Luthor. Uh, you can't have one without the other. You can't have a policeman without a criminal. If everybody decided, or if everybody decided we're never going to commit a crime, well, what happens to the policeman? You become obsolete. You become non-existent because there's no need for you. So for every criminal, we need a policeman. And for every policeman, we need a criminal. It's the way society goes. You see, for every up, there's a down, and for every down, there's an up. And it's about embracing that. What we tend to do in society, and a lot of this comes from kind of like religious Judeo-Christian thinking, we tend to split, we tend to polarize, and we tend to divide things as a black and white. So everything becomes right and wrong.
Good or bad.
That's it. Good and bad. And actually, there's a lot more grey area in between. And if we have that dialogue, we'll get somewhere. But it's like, no, you're doing this or you're doing that. That's good and that's bad. And it's not very helpful. And this is why society seems like it's always polarizing from one side to the opposite. So we're always finding the extreme. You can't just be good, 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 good. You can't have it because the scales are going to tip. You see, you can't. If somebody says I'm going west, you can only go west for so long. If you go west far enough, you'll end up in the east, and vice versa. You know, it's a little bit like politics. You know, it's been, oh, it's the far right, and it's the far right. If you listen to someone who's quote unquote far right, they start sounding like somebody who's far left. You know, they start sounding the same because, well, yeah, you start meeting up at the same place. So life has got much more variations. Again, a little bit like the astrology that I've been talking about. There's a lot more variations than these nice 12 zodiac signs than there is just, oh, you're just this or you're just that. So that's what it is. When we polarize, then we meet the shadow.
So if we start to embrace the shadow and let the shadow into our lives,
yes,
whatever that might manifest, what does that mean for us? Does that make us more complete?
Yes.
Does it mean we're
Most
our
definitely.
soul?
Most definitely. That's what it's about. You become more whole. You become more complete. You don't disown the part of yourself. You own it. And you find ways for that quote unquote disowned part of yourself, even though it may be something a bit inappropriate, but you find ways to channel it. You can find healthier ways to channel it. So, for example, if we look at somebody like, I take an example of Mike Tyson, being I used to be an ex-boxer myself. Mike Tyson, as a youngster, grew up in a very, not so great neighborhood. It was that robbing and stealing and stuff like that, and getting into fights and beating people up and stealing and robbing people. But he met the great trainer, is at the time Costamato, who managed to he saw the potential in him, right, and managed to channel all of that aggression, all of that fuel into him becoming the great world champion that he became. He took something that would have been perceived as dark, right, that Mike Tyson had, and what was able to channel that and say he didn't sort of like say, because that's what society tends to do. Oh, lock him up and throw away the key. That doesn't help. We've got to be able to work with it. What is this thing? Where's it coming from? What does it consist of? Okay, how can we channel that? And as they say, if life throws lemons at you, make lemonade. you know. It reminds me of my mother when I was young. Her bread might have gone off for a few days or something like that. No, don't chuck it away. We can make good bread pudding with that. So it can all be, everything can be recycled and can be remodeled and remade again. You see, so that is what we need to do with the shadow. We need to embrace it more. And by embracing it, we become more whole. And again, adds to that fulfillment again. Again, why some people coming back to the depression. A lot of that is part of that. There's a part that we've disowned. We've rejected it. And we've rejected it. Why? Because of social pressures, maybe social media, parents, religion, or philosophical beliefs, culture, race, um, so many things, peers. We've rejected this part of ourselves. We dare not embrace it or even look at it because we feel ashamed or we feel we're going to be rejected. It's rejection is one of the big things. I'm afraid if I say this, what will they say? What will my friends say about me? They may not like me anymore. I'm saying a truth that is true to me. Some of my friends might say, "Oh no, no, no." I mean, we found that with people with their sexuality. For many years, battled with their sexuality because they were of a certain sexuality. They would not reveal it because what would my parents say? What would my they hid it, And for some people, people lost their lives because of that, you know. So we have to think again. But now these things are, people are more people are coming out with it. We're seeing now it's starting to level up a little bit. I mean, it's still out there. There's still a lot of stigma around certain sexualities, but at least people are beginning more and more to acknowledge this part, and people are creating places or safe havens where people can express how they may be feeling about something. So all of this is part of, again, the shadow.
Yeah, I was thinking what would be a prominent example, and I think that's probably one of them, which is someone coming out.
Yeah.
And then they might be. I've interviewed quite a few people on this podcast who have come out, and they've explained, that their religious community might not accept them,
Yes.
that their friends might not accept them, that their parents might not accept them. So one person I interviewed at the very, very beginning of this podcast was just, said, because this was a long time ago, that was back in the 80s, and he said, I feared if I came out, then literally everyone would reject me. My friends, my family. I just thought I was a normal guy.
Exactly.
And he said, and I realise now I am just a normal
Yeah,
guy.
of course he is.
It's like I'm a normal guy that likes football and likes rugby and like these things, but I just happen to like men.
Exactly.
And he said, so why should I be ostracised for that? And he just thought, oh, I think other people are like this, but they just don't talk about it.
Exactly. There's far more. There are far more.
Yeah.
And more people are coming out with that. And this is what it is. Because society has, again, created this framework that, no, you're a man, this is how you should be. Because you're male, this is how you should act. And they've done this for centuries. You're a male, so you should, there's certain things that you're a man, so you shouldn't cry. And this has been a big thing. This has been you're a man, so you shouldn't cry. You shouldn't be vulnerable. You cannot be soft and gentle. You got to be tough. Stick it up. That kind of thing. And I get, to a certain degree, it does work and it's necessary. But no, you've got to be. And again, we've done it to women for centuries. No, you're a female, so you belong in the kitchen. You're meant to cry, and you're meant to all that stuff that belongs to you. No, it doesn't work like that. And then coming with the astrology, this is what I'm saying. Astrology will show you, you could be male but be feminine, and you could be female but be masculine. There's a difference that. So these are things that have been going on for years that people have had tough times with. So society has made people feel a particular way because of shame. And this is the big thing, rejection. I'm going to be rejected. So nobody's going to want me. Nobody's going to want to, because they're going to see me as abnormal because who told you were abnormal? Somebody told you that. That came from somewhere. It came from an ideology, a concept, and that's been fed. You see. So sometimes, even though these structures it's like they say, the all roads to hell are paved with good intentions. And yeah, maybe when the model was firstly built, it did have good intentions around it, but it was limiting. That's the thing, it limits, and it doesn't allow people. And just for that example, it's been going on for years, and many people have been so, and as we've seen, so many people now start coming out, start saying, well, I'm male, but I like a man. That's your preference. If that's your natural preference, and that's what you feel, then you should be allowed to pursue that. You shouldn't be stigmatized for that or be shamed for that in any kind of way. So yeah, it's something, and sex is one. Race has been a big one. In terms of superiority, maybe one race feeling it's more superior than the other. We've had that. We find it in religion. My religion is right, so yours, whatever your belief system is wrong. So we persecute you. People have been, it comes in all ways, shapes, and forms. It can be political. It can take any kind of. It can be rich versus poor. Classism. It comes in so many ways. Sexuality is just one of the many ways in terms of this. So, and people being stigmatized and things. But again, that is that big thing. Oh, what are they going to say? So you live a false life, um, hidden life.
Unfulfilled potential.
Yeah, totally, because you're blocked. You're really blocking the essence in terms of who you are. You could be a spokesperson, a healer. That's buried in there, but you're not going to come out with it because, yeah. I mean, certain aspects of society is changing. It's becoming open to some things, but there's still so much more. Because as a matter of fact, there's more than what we don't know than what we do, and that's the frightening part. That what is it that we're not even aware of, or we're not even touching on, or stuff that we don't even know. That's that needs to come out, so that we need to find ways of how to handle that and how to deal with it. So yeah, it's big stuff.
Yeah. For someone, do you think people know what they're suppressing? Or do you think people know what their dark side is? Or do you?
No. In most cases, they don't. They just feel something, but they don't know. They don't know. Um, some of them do to some degree. So in the example of like the sexuality, for example, I mean that somebody will know that, okay, well, I have a particular tendency for this type of sexuality, or my sexual orientation goes towards this direction, and again, fear of rejection, and because of what my friends or religion or my family will say.
I think in that instance, someone absolutely knows.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
But I feel what they don't, at the time, they may not realize how serious it is, or they may not realize that they can't keep it up. I think in the beginning they might think, "Oh, nobody will know." This is not something that's just going to go away. We're talking about your sexual orientation here. It's not just going to change overnight.
Well, the interesting thing that's been very famous, I'm thinking of Philip Schofield,
Yes,
who came out a few years ago after being married, after having children,
exactly.
and then he came out one day to his wife and just said, "I can't live like this anymore."
Exactly.
Like, and there must be so many people that are living like that, or
Oh,
living
oh,
with some level
yeah,
of suppression,
yeah.
which then, so what's he got? Fear of rejection of his wife, the children, got TV
Exactly.
career, all of those sorts of things. And, so I think about all those things that would have
Yeah,
happened
yeah,
10 years ago.
it's out there a lot more than we could imagine. It's the percentage is a lot more. It's a lot more higher than we think. We're just hearing about these one or two stories, Schofield and stuff like that are coming out that are making headlines. But there's a lot more people generally in society who are in that same position, and there still are. But again, the fear, depending on the cultural background, the religion, peers, their friends. What are my friends going to say? They've seen me in one way, you know. Because for many, if not most of them, they'll probably lose all their friends. Because they go, oh, I thought you were. Because again, they've had to keep up this image. But I would say to them that if you were to come out and the friends were to leave you, they weren't your friends in the first place.
Great.
Let them go. But again, the fear, it's okay. If you've made a set of friends, you can make new ones. And then if they're not for you, if they cannot understand that journey which you're on and who you are for who you truly are, then goodbye. Thank you. This is where we come. Life is like a train, like a bus. People get off at different stops. People get on again. That's how it is sometimes, even with friends. Sometimes it's like that. That's as far as we've come. Thank you for my experience. Thank you for my journey. But I've got to get off here and catch another train, or you're getting off, or you're catching another train. Either way, we're parting. It happens.
I think a lot about that actually, because I'm mid-40s now,
Right.
and a lot of people I was friends with many years ago, you sort of just lose touch with, or your life changes so much
exactly.
over the years.
Yeah.
You're no longer the same person.
Yeah.
Who I was 10 years ago with my bestie, we don't have that same things in common anymore.
Right.
So like your friendships do change over your lifetime, and I kind of think of it as a bit of a shedding in some respects.
Yeah.
That's probably a bit of a trite term, but like a bit of a shedding that you go through different stages in your life, and therefore different people kind of align to you at the right time. Doesn't mean they're not your friend, but you might have your life partner that you spend, that you get married with. But your friends, I do believe there's kind of something far more fluid. Let's go back to that.
Yeah. Fluid. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Because your energy changes, who you are,
and
changes.
all aspects of life, and it does happen. As again, there's this notion that even with marriage, that marriage is meant not all the time. For some people, yes,
but 50% divorce rates.
Yeah, exactly. It's not meant. Sometimes at that you're with somebody based on where you're at that time. You may grow out of it. You may grow out of it. You lose interest. Partner's into something else. You're getting into something else. Maybe partner discovers something about herself. Maybe you discover something about yourself. Again, we're all on a journey. This journey is an individual one. It requires us, to be on solo. It's like running. We've got to stay in your lane. And yeah, we want to. It's nice when we've got people around us, but it's not. And that is the fear. That's the anxiety. Oh my God, if he leaves me, if she leaves me, well, if it needs to be for that growth to take place, sometimes a divorce may be necessary. And just like we said, friends, they do come and go. It doesn't mean that the person's a bad person or whatever. You just grew apart. They were into something. They've got their journey. They've got their life lessons. They've got a thing. And so have you. And that's all it is. And, so it splits. But again, the fear. No, we want to keep things the same. We want those same friends. We want the same. That's not going to make you grow. You see, what makes you grow is meeting different people. Encountering different people, having different friends. You see, that's where growth comes in. That's what allows for growth.
Also, I think there's also I'm trying to put this into words. Sometimes you have to create space in your life. So that's why I often think that maybe if a friendship doesn't work out, or a marriage or some sort of relationship doesn't work out, if you kind of embrace it, and realize that's telling you something, but it's also I don't know how to put this into words, but it creates space for something new to happen.
Right.
Because if you continue investing your time, and this could be talking about a romantic relationship or any type of relationship, or even a job, you could be investing your time and your energy in the wrong place, or the place that isn't right for you for your future.
Exactly.
And there has to be kind of like, right, I need to create space for something new to come into my life.
Yes, exactly. No, it's very important that you have that space allows you to grow, and for word space, So it's definitely important that you definitely have that space where you can think, where you can reflect, and where it can allow you to expand in the direction where you need to, where you need to be. So yeah, that's very, very important, extremely. Um, and even in the partnership, even in the marriage, you can expand together, you can grow together, but there's also going to be individual things as well that maybe the husband's in that the wife's not into, or vice versa, or they've got their own individual paths that they've got to also fulfill also as well. And sometimes the marriage may be able to encapsulate and to keep it, but sometimes it may not. It could mean that, okay, there's going to be a separation. Again, that's not necessarily a bad thing, you know. And again, many people are in relationships right now because what other people, what what my dad would say, they're not happy, they're not fulfilled. It's reached a level where it cannot go beyond any further. And well, yeah, but what are things gonna? And then the other stuff starts coming in. You see, and this is where sometimes the affairs start coming in, or the affairs start happening, because something's trying to grow, and they're not seeing that. They're not seeing the meaning. So yeah.
I think what's interesting about that, isn't it? Because that's the natural growth that's within us. That's telling us the direction we need to go on in our life. Because none of us know what our life's going to be like, in a year's time, 5 years, 10 years time, time. But there's something inside us that I've tried to really lean into, which, and again, I can only describe it as intuition.
Yes.
Some sort of gut feeling.
Yes. Yes.
That you're supposed to go in a particular direction.
Yeah. You need to keep growing.
Yeah, and it's and I feel like, because this world that we have is all been created based on growth, based on progression of the world, progression of the universe, progression of everything's based on some level of progression moving forward. So I feel like that's something that's innate within us somewhere.
It's the continuum.
There we are. Yeah.
Because without it, there'd be no life. Life needs to keep going. It needs to keep pushing. We will continue to push boundaries. We'll continue with new ideas, new philosophies, new beliefs, new understandings. We can continue it because life has to continue.
But that's the funny thing is that. But then what we do, so we have this feeling here,
right?
I feel like I know what the right thing is to do and progress, but then our mind or our actions will suppress it. Maybe you're feeling some suffering or pain from your job. You go home and drink alcohol. You eat food and whatever the wrong foods or some bad foods, and you kind of just I don't want to approach that today. Let's just leave that over there. I'm not ready for that. And then that builds and builds and builds.
And a part of that is also coming from the external world, because it's coming from our education system, the way society has been, because again, they want this one blanket fix all. You've got to fit. This is what you've got to be. You've got to be fitting into this nice box that society wants you to fit in. And then your parents want a certain expectation. So that's got to fit in a nice big box. And then your peers. And then if you belong to a religious group or culture, then you've got to fit into that. So you get all these different, but the soul is wanting to expand more, and the soul is wanting to go beyond the parameters of what culture, religion, belief, society, education has set for us. It's wanting to go beyond that.
It's trying to get out of this confined
exactly
box.
Because it's fluid.
And that's growth. That's human potential.
Yes, exactly. Huge potential.
I don't think everyone has this though. Like some people might get to a certain point and they're very calm and happy, and maybe that's their soul saying that's right. That's everything.
Yeah, I feel I think everybody gets to a point. There's always, just like anything, but I don't think that's it.
No,
I think yes, you're right. Some people do achieve certain things in life, and they're calm and fulfilled, but it's temporarily. Even if you work it's temporarily, and it could be like that for 5 years, 10 years, or whatever. But eventually, you want more. I want something more, because what happens? Life gets boring. Okay, you've reached the thing. So now what? Okay, yeah, I wanted the big house. I got the. Okay, now you've got the big house. Now you've got the car. Now you got the wife. You got the children. Okay, now what? After a while, after a while, boredom starts getting in. With boredom, you start getting frustrated. So you start looking for stuff to do. Okay, right. So something's trying to create the next level also as well. It never ends. Hence, like the story, the never-ending story. That's what our life is like. It's a never-ending story. It continues in some way, shape, or form. We can be content, yes, of course, but the continuum, that need to keep on continuing, to keep on striving, and sometimes that continuum can be subtle. Could be like you're not doing much, but you're actually doing something. You're continuing, you know, you're maintaining, you're continuing something. So
It's like an ache.
yes,
Like it starts off with like a low vibration
yeah,
of an ache.
yes,
Something's not quite right.
yes, yeah, exactly. It starts to just spiral and just it's never ending. It's phenomenal, and these are where astrology for me really starts to come in because it starts to show you this is the level where you're at. So in astrology, we have what's known as, and this is where the predictive side comes in, where we have what's known as transits, and there's other methods in terms of understanding a cycle that one is in. So we can see very often when somebody, based on their birth chart, when they've come to a particular cycle, like, you're completing a cycle here. So you're getting ready for a new one. So this is a very pivotal point. You're at a point of a critical change. The wheel is turning here for you. They speak about the wheel of fate, for example. Well, the principle of the wheel of fate is that the wheel turns. So are you at the bottom coming up, or you at the top coming down? Are you halfway coming down, or you're halfway going up? There's different phases in this wheel. And astrology, which is based on the wheel of life, the sun rising and setting and the moon's rising and setting, is allowing astrologers to be able to say that, well, based on your own chart, in your wheel of life, you're here. You're at the pinnacle, you're at the top. Well, once you're at the top, you don't stay at the top. You're going to come down. It's like prime ministers and presidents, they make it there, they win the election. All right, yeah, we're there. Yeah, how long for? 1 term, 2 terms? Well, goodbye. No matter how good of eventually you've got to go. Somebody else is going to come and take your position and you're going to be on the way out. And the same way you got where you got to when you was great on the up, someone else is going to come up also as well. So where are you in the wheel? And that's the career life. So you've got a wheel for your relationship life. You've got a wheel for your family life, for house, money, friends, travel. So there's wheels upon wheels that are ticking. Where are you? Are you at a point where are you buying the house or are you selling the house? Are you losing the house or are you getting a house? There's all these various wheels which astrology and the planets in their alignment show us or reflect that this is the time for you where this is going to be happening for you or this is not going to be happening for you.
Love that. So as part of the readings,
Yes.
So someone will come in,
Yes.
get the charts
out. Yes.
So I'm trying to think if someone wants to get in contact and have some reading.
Yeah, well, they can have a reading. I also teach it as well, so I run courses in it as well, from beginners to advanced level 2. But yeah, if somebody wants a reading, they contact me. Whether it's through my website or through social media. Word of mouth tends to be the most prominent or common way, but either way is fine. And we arrange a date and time of when they're gonna they book the reading. We arrange a date and time of when we're going to schedule it. Mostly these days it's done by Zoom. And then I get their birth details, and then I will draw up their birth chart. So I'll see where all the planets are, and I will be able to see their characteristics, their early life, how they've been affected psychologically. What kind of father did they have? What kind of mother did they have? Where are the talents? Where are the strengths? Where are the weaknesses? But most importantly, where are they now? You've come to me now for a reading. Where are the planets right now in relation to your chart? And what are they saying? What are they telling us? Is it this a beginning phase for you? Are you in the middle? Are you reaching a peak phase? Or is your sun setting for you in whichever area of life? Is there a new relationship on the horizon? Is the relationship at a critical point? Is the relationship on the way out? All of this will be reflected in the birth chart. And then I can give them advice accordingly to empower them. And again, the aim is that so that you can live a more fulfilled life. So all of that is in the chart. It's extremely revealing to the point where one consultation essentially is not even enough because there's so many layers. This is why I would say 95% of my clients come back because there's more, because life is still going on and the planets are still turning and you're still alive, meaning that you're still encountering different events, circumstances. Where are you on this wheel? What's happening with the relationship? What's happening with life? What's happening with career? What's happening with your money? What's happening with children, home, health? All of that all can be seen in the chart.
And what are the inputs? So you said about the dates.
Yes.
The dates.
So the date. So day, as in the day. The day, the month, the year. The place is very important because different time zones. And yeah, and that's it. That's all we need. Date, time, place, birth, and we're good to go.
Wow.
And yeah, we'll draw out your horoscope, and it's it's like I said, I call it your cosmic blueprint. That's your cosmic birth certificate. It can never change. That was the day in which you were born. That's where the planets were when you were born. And that is your sat nav, that is your guide, that is your map that will help you through and navigate you through life. Where are the deep ends? Where are the shallow ends? Where are the rocky parts? Where are the smooth parts? All of that we can see in the chart.
Yeah, it must be quite an eye-opening experience for someone to go through that.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's quite like, and even me, I've been doing it for over 20 years now, and it's like, I still like, oh wow. I still have these aha moments of wow, because again, no two charts are the same. But yeah, it's wonderful. It's a wonderful topic, wonderful science, and I not from a dogmatic perspective. I'm not saying it's the only way. But it's a very unique way, and for me, it's definitely one of the best ways to be able to understand who you truly are. There are other ways. There are other models. Let's put it that way. But astrology is one of the most profound. It's based on the principle of sun, moon, and planetary alignments, which have been here from day dot.
I think just getting that insight into your soul of who you really are.
Yes.
Outside of the societal norms, to actually to understand who you are to your core. What an interesting thing to do to learn about yourself.
Yes. You have a good snapshot of who you truly are, not what society tells you who you are or wants you to be who you are. And to some degree, even who our parents say who you are or want you to be, Again, with all good intentions, our parents, in most cases, raised us with great intentions and looked after us to their best ability. that they were human beings as well, and they were fallible, and they made mistakes just like everybody else, just the same we do as well. So, who are you on the soul level? What did your soul want to achieve? What was the purpose? What was the aims that the soul wants? Um, it reminds me of the word education, which comes from the Latin word educare, from the Greek word educare, which means to draw out. So it was based on the principle that every soul wanted to express itself, and the true meaning behind education. What I'm not saying the school system is a bad thing, don't get me wrong, but what we do in schools today is train, not educate. It's just they're just training us how we can get a job in society, and how and based on, even on the examinations, is really based on, you know, being able to be part of society so that you can go in and work just like everybody else. But education really is being able, there are elements of education that do happen in the school system, I'll say that. But education is really to draw out what is the soul that is in front of us? What does it want to do? When we have a child or a young person in front of us, what is this person? What is this energy? And what does it want to do? How can we draw that out? So going back to that example of Mike Tyson, this is what Costamato did with him. This is what he saw. He said it in one of his speeches. He said, I saw the spark. He goes, my job is just to ignite that spark. I just wanted to ignite. That's all I needed to do. Once I do that, that's it. Boom, there you go. You know, which made him become the youngest heavyweight champion of the world, or, you know, of all time. So that's what it's about, to be able to draw that out. I see this potential. I see this inside of you. You know, bring it out. That's true education. But a lot of us are not educated, meaning that, not that you didn't go to school, you can have the degrees, but right, but you're not educated in terms of on a soul level. Soul education. Bring the soul out. What does your soul want?
Yeah.
Astrology is the key that can show you what your soul wants, what it needs, and the direction which is much best for its fulfillment in this.
I'm confident to say that I don't think I ever had one conversation about what my soul wants. If I think about my education, or even into later years, I think it's only now in after living nearly over 40 years,
right,
can you actually start exploring it. And
right.
I feel like if you can encounter these types of conversations far earlier in your life,
yeah, exactly,
you can kind of live a life that's truer to you.
Yeah, and the world will be a much better place. I mean, we all talk about wanting the world to be a better place, and everywhere has its ups and downs. But if more people find themselves and are true to themselves, we'd have a lot more happy people, fulfilled people. Yes.
One of my favourite sort of quotes that Jordan Peterson said.
You're right.
He said, "It's your moral responsibility to go after your dreams."
Yeah.
I really like that. And
yes.
And then he was interviewed on Chris Williamson, Modern Wisdom. And he said, "Well, if you don't, what happens?" And he said, "Well, you've either got a soul that is living in alignment with their best self, or you've got a soul that is depressed." And he said, "Well, what's the best for society? It's best for the people around you to, to be going after your dreams, to be doing those things." But I think the interesting thing is, a lot of people don't know what that is.
Right.
They don't know what their dream is. There's, especially in this world that we live in now, when everything's available to us.
Exactly.
Travel is available to us. Business is available to us. Relationships are available. There is not one purpose we have. It's what your purpose is.
Yeah, exactly.
What all the things that you can do.
Yeah, no, it can be very confusing and very overwhelming. And again, this is where astrology helps you hone that in. and to also understand that we can be many things. We are many things. I don't expect a father to be. I expect him to be a particular way to his wife or his woman partner. Um, I expect him to be a certain way to his children. I expect him to be a certain way at work. I expect him to be a certain way in terms of his own, uh, um, uh, you know, what he wants, being true to himself. I expect him to be a particular way with his friends, his peers. So there are various. We are diverse people, and it's okay. We can have two jobs. We could have two occupations. We could want two things. I may want to help people. I may want to entertain people at the same time. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe there's a way to maybe fuse both, but maybe not. Maybe they have to be two separate things. So I think things like astrology allow us to understand that I do have this side, and I do have this side as well, and I can do a bit of both. It doesn't necessarily maybe have to be just one thing. Um, but that quote there by Jordan Peterson is extremely profound. Yeah, and it kind of reminds me of a saying by Carl Jung, and he says here, you know, you must become what is within you. You must live it. You must live who you are. Become what is within you. Um, it's something extremely profound, because if you don't live what is within you, um, well, you can end up killing it, and that's where aspects of depression or other things like that can come in. So it's very important that we get to the soul in terms of who we are, and it can be very confusing, especially today with TV and social media, and we're getting hit with bombarded with this and that. Sometimes it can be a little bit, especially for the youngsters. There's more. I would say there's more distractions these days it can very easily distract us in some kind of way. Um, so, uh, uh, but we got to ask that question: who am I really, and what do I really want? To question that. And don't be afraid, and don't be afraid of rejection. You see, be central to be true to who you are. Because I think there's also something within the human nature. We like something that's authentic. It's real. We do like that. It's different, but it's real. You see, not everything is going to be status quo. Some things are going to be not so conventional. Some things are going to be ultra conventional. So it's how it is. We've got to be fluid though.
You buy into when you see someone who's really being authentic.
Yeah.
You really buy into them more.
Yes,
there's something about it, something about their energy, which you buy into, and you're just like, I love that person's energy.
And they're real.
They're real.
They're real.
There's trust, and you can be engaged with that person.
Exactly, and that's very, very important. It's an important aspect of life. We have to go on that quest. Who am I? Who am I?
Such a profound statement. I love this. You must become what is within you. You've not heard that before.
Yes, yeah.
But it's great.
Must become what is within you. Very important. So, for me, astrology allows us to understand what is within you. Where the planets are a reflection of your soul incarnating into this world and giving you a blueprint of how to navigate yourself and become who you truly are. So yeah, extremely profound.
I've really loved talking to you today.
Thank you.
Amazing.
It's been a pleasure. It's been great being here. Seriously, love it.
It's been a great conversation. I've really loved it. If someone wants to get in contact with you, have a reading, work with you, what's the best way of getting in contact?
They can go on my website, which is www.sacredplanets.com. There's two, so either one, it will reach me. There's also sacredplanets.co.uk. I'm also on social media platforms, Instagram, TikTok, Sacred Planets. You can find me as well. The name's Israel Ajose. You'll see Sacred Planets, but Israel Ajose, the name will accompany it also as well. But yeah, you can Google me. I'm not hard to find.
Amazing. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you. Pleasure.